අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 30th of August 2023. Solitary dependence. President Ranil Wickremesinghe stressed the need for Sri Lanka's independence in being self-reliant, moving away from the constant dependence of external funding. Wheat what? The Sri Lankan government abolishes the import license for wheat and replaces it with a tax that is beneficial to the end consumer. Poya payday. Aspasuma beneficiary payments get underway today as state banks stay open for disbursement.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක. Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. හොඳම මෙලට කල් පවතින වහරයක්.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to you from AdaDerana's English News First at 9. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Let's take a look at our top story for this evening. President Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday highlighted his unwavering confidence in Sri Lanka's potential to develop independently and alleviate the reliance on external assistance. Addressing a gathering, the president went on to emphasize the value of the engagement of the private sector, along with encouraging investments which have been identified as crucial factors in generating the necessary funds to drive the country's sustainable development initiatives.
The Forum on Sri Lanka's Sustainable Development Trajectories and Pathways was held at Temple Trees under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Is the world still ready for a period of fast growth? No. We are in the middle of a crisis, another crisis. So first we have to look at, find the resources. What are the resources available? We rely not only on financing from the multilateral development banks, but also from the private sector. Private sector to invest, the private sector to issue bonds. Now, will that succeed in the case of many countries? Some may not be prepared to accept it. The private sector will find the others still are not suitable for investment. So we leave about 1/3 to 40% out of that. Then how is the rest to grow? Now I think this is an issue which we have to, where do we find the fund? And look at Sri Lanka. We required annual investment of 9% of the GDP in 2019. This is just to attain the SDGs. In addition to it, now for the climate change goals, and we are a country that's bankrupt. So where do we find the resources? Now this is a question mark that all of us have. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we will make the best effort. And as a result of the debt crisis we've had, a small economy that is protected. So let's not be a burden. I think we in Sri Lanka should no longer think of asking others for help, but let's make it on our own. Many countries have done.
Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on the chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askari chapters yesterday afternoon. Initiating his engagements, the president first visited the Malwatu Mahavihara to meet with the Most Venerable Sri Sumangala Mahanayaka Thera, engaging in a brief yet impactful conversation. The president also paid a visit to the Anunayaka of the Malwatu chapter, the Most Venerable Dimul Kumbura Sri Vimaladhamma Thera. Subsequently, President Wickremesinghe proceeded to the Askari Mahavihara, where he received blessings from the Askari Mahanayaka, the Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thera. Continuing his interactions, the president visited the Anunayaka Theras of the Askari chapter, Venerable Anamaduwe Dhammadasi Thera and Venerable Vendaruwe Upali Anunayaka Thera, and engaged in insightful discussions.
The government has taken steps to abolish the existing import license system by raising the import tax on a kilogram of wheat flour with effect from midnight yesterday. Import duty on wheat flour has been raised to 27 rupees a kilogram, an increment of 20%. Wheat flour also has a 10% port and airport levy and a 2.5% social contribution levy. Minister of Trade and Commerce Nalin Fernando also commented to the media today regarding the government's decision to import rice, eggs and chicken due to artificially high prices.
ලු ප්‍රමාණයට වඩා පැහැදිලි මිල අඩුවීමක් ලෝක වෙළඳ පොලේ තිරිඟු පිටි සඳහා මේ මාස කිහිපය තුළ අපි මේ ගණනය කරලා බැලුවා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මේ මිල අඩුවීමෙන් වැඩි වාසිය පාරිභෝගිකයාටත් ලැබෙන ආකාරයට අපි ඊයේ රාත්‍රී 12 ඉඳලා තිරිඟු පිටි ආනයන සඳහා වූ බලපත්‍ර ක්‍රමය අහෝසි කරලා නිදහස් කළේ හැම කෙනෙක්ටම හැම පාර්ශ්වයකටම මෙහි ප්‍රයෝජන ප්‍රතිලාභ අත්වෙන විදියට.
Sri Lanka will meanwhile import 92.1 million eggs from India in the upcoming 3 months. With government approval being granted for the import, quotations have been called for from 3 Indian companies recommended by the Department of Animal Production and Health. Commenting on the import of rice, chicken and eggs, Minister of Trade Nalin Fernando said that if the suppliers reduce the price, the government is ready to stop the imports.
කුඹුරු අක්කර 55ක් වගාහානියක් ගැන කෘෂිකර්ම අමාත්‍යාංශය පැහැදිලිව ඉලක්කමක් විදිහට කියලා නැහැ. නමුත් ආසන්න වශයෙන් කියලා තියෙනවා කුඹුරු අක්කර 55ක් මේ රටේ විනාශ වුණොත් ඒකෙන් වී කොච්චරක් නැති වෙනවද කියන එක බලන්න ඕන. ඒකෙන් හාල් කොච්චරක් නැති වෙනවද කියන එක බලන්න ඕන. ගිය කන්නේ වී තාම තියෙනවා. ඒතර මේ යල කන්නේ වී දැන් ලැබීමෙන් පස්සේ 150කට කපලා ඉවරයි. එතකොට ආය අධික විදියට සහල් මිල ඉහළ යනවා. නිසා මම කොයිම අවස්ථාවකවත් සහල් මිල පාලන මිලක් තියෙනවා මේ අවස්ථාවේ පාලන මිලට එහා යන්න අවස්ථාවක් නැහැ. බැරි වෙලාවත් එහෙම සහල් මිල අපිට පාලනය කරගන්න බැරුව ගියොත් අනිවාර්ය සහල් ආනයනයකට යන්න සිදු වෙයි.
දැන් කඩේට ගිහලා බලන්නකො කීරිසම්බ නැහැ.
ඔව් කීරිසම්බ නැති වෙන්න හේතුව කීරිසම්බ තියාගන්න නිකුත් නොකරන මූලිකමියෝ දැන්ට කටයුතු කරලා යනවා. ඉතින් අපි එයාට කාලයක් දෙනවා. එහෙම නිකුත් නොකරුවොත් ඉස්සරහට අපි නීතිමය කටයුතු කරනවා.
දේශීය බිත්තරේ දැන් මිල අඩු වුණා පොත්. දැන් ඔබතුමාලා ආනයනය කරන බිත්තර දැන් නතර කරනවද?
අපි කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ තවත් මාස 3ක් සඳහා ඒ ආනයනය කිරීම කරන්න අපි ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ අනුමැතිය කරා. ඒ නිසා බිත්තර මිලියන 90ක් ඉදිරි මාස 3 සඳහා ආනයනය කරන්න කටයුතු කරුවා. ඒ මොනා කරත් රුපියල් 30ට 35ට බිත්තර ආවොත් ඒ කොච්චර කල් දික් කෙරුවත් මම බිත්තර ආනයනය කරේ නවත්තනවා. හැබැයි රුපියල් 30 35 අතර දේශීය බිත්තරේ තියෙන්න ඕන.
කුකුල් මාස් කිලෝ එක ශීඝ්‍රයෙන් ඉහළ ගියානේ. දැන් මේගොල්ලෝ මේ රුපියල් 100ක් අඩු කරලා තියෙනවා. තවත් අඩු කරන්න
100ක් 150ක් අඩු කරලා තියෙනවා. මගේ ගාන රුපියල් 850ක් වෙන්න ඕන. තවත් රුපියල් 150ක් විතර අඩු කරගත්තා නම් මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ගොඩින් බේර ගන්න පුළුවන්. ගොඩින් බේර ගන්න නැත්තම් මොකද කරන්නේ? ගොඩින් බේර ගන්න නැත්තම් ආනයනය කරනවා. එච්චරයි.
Sri Lanka State Bank stayed open today despite it being a bank holiday in order to facilitate the Aswasuma welfare beneficiaries who are yet to collect their stipends. All branches of the Bank of Ceylon, People's Bank and the National Savings Bank were kept open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for beneficiaries to collect their payments. According to State Minister Shehan Semasinghe, among the 2 million Aswasuma beneficiary families, phased payments have commenced for 1.5 million families. In the first phase, a total of 4.395 billion rupees was successfully transferred to the bank accounts of 689,803 beneficiaries. Approximately 15 billion rupees have been earmarked for assisting the 1.5 million shortlisted beneficiary families. The second category's monetary provision will be initiated next week. Minister Semasinghe said that queries concerning fund matters can be directed to the hotline number 1924 on weekdays from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. In other news, former president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, President's Counsel Salia Piris, said that attempts taken to intimidate and pressure the judiciary must cease. He added that a public workshop on the topics of democracy, the executive and the judiciary has been organized. He also called upon all members of the bar to take every possible step to protect the independence of the judiciary, the rule of law, as well as the rights of the people in Sri Lanka. Addressing the media, former president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Upul Jayasuriya, said that the legal fraternity must collectively face challenges with regards to the independence of the judiciary in resilience to any potential opposition they might face.
During the recent months, we have seen an onslaught by the executive on the independence of the judiciary. In the first place, we have seen the executive disobeying the orders of court relating to elections. Then we saw an attempt to haul judges for breach of privilege of parliament. And more recently, we have seen the president at the Coconut Growers Association stating that the government will take orders on debt restructuring only from parliament and no one else. Now, when that speech was made, the next day, the Supreme Court was to hear cases relating to debt restructuring. So we see these attempts as attempts to intimidate the judiciary, to bring pressure to bear on the judiciary. So as a first step, we are having a public workshop on democracy, the executive and the judiciary, which will be on the 4th of September at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute. We call upon all members of the bar to do what has to be done to protect the independence of the judiciary, the rule of law, and the rights of the people in our country.
It is very much visible that the rule of law is breaking down in our society. This has been happening, of course, from end of 2019, where the central bank has been under a lot of pressure, the tax department has been under a lot of pressure, the police department has been under a lot of pressure, the prosecutors department, the attorney general's department has been under a lot of pressure, and to say the least, even the judiciary has been under huge pressure. These challenges have to be overcome. In that endeavor, the legal fraternity has a duty cast upon itself. From the time I was the president of the Bar Association, and thereafter, and also our predecessor, Mr. Salia Piris, he has been going through this situation. We have faced personal challenges, but we have overcome them. But the challenges that we are now made to face and suffer is enormous, and it has become necessary that the entire legal fraternity has to get together and then face it with resilience.
With the welcome rains that have watered the parched Sri Lankan soil lately, the Department of Meteorology has now forecasted the possibility of the prevailing wet conditions intensifying in parts of the country until the 3rd of September. As such, the public has been urged to take precautions to minimize damages caused by winds and heavy rains following the change in climatic conditions, adding that severe weather conditions will continue to occur in several districts of the country.
Amidst the extreme weather conditions experienced by Sri Lanka for the past several days, parts of the country are now experiencing rains. The Department of Meteorology has forecasted that there is a possibility of the prevailing showery condition in the southwestern part of the island intensifying from the 1st to the 3rd of September. Showers are expected to occur at times in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Fairly heavy showers of about 75 mm are likely in some places in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Showers or thunder showers are also anticipated in the eastern and Uva provinces and in the Polonnaruwa, Vavuniya and Mullaitivu districts during the evening and night. Taking the current wet weather conditions into account, the general public has been requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. Further, fairly strong winds of about 40 to 45 km per hour can be expected periodically in the western slopes of the Central Hills and the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces. However, as reported by the Meteorological Department previously, the sun will also be directly over certain parts of the country until the 7th of September this year. Consequently, several towns in the Vavuniya, Anuradhapura and Trincomalee districts will be impacted by direct sunlight tomorrow. The duty meteorologist of the Meteorological Department, Malit Fernando, highlighted that the prevailing showery conditions will continue in parts of the country, further adding that the climatic conditions of the country may vary in different regions during the first few days of the upcoming month.
Yesterday's weather brought about a notable change, with moderate to fairly heavy rainfall occurring in the catchment areas. However, it is worth noting that significant rainfall was still absent from the north central and northern regions of the country. Looking ahead, we anticipate a continuation of the prevailing showery conditions in the southwestern parts of the island and further enhancement of rainfalls during the first 3 days of September. In the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces as well as in the Galle and Mathura districts, there is a likelihood of fairly heavy showers with estimated amount around 75 mm. Expect showers or thunder showers in several areas within the eastern and Uva provinces and in Polonnaruwa, Vavuniya and Mullaitivu districts. The general public is strongly advised to take necessary precautions to minimize potential damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning, especially during thunder showers. As we move into the first few days of September, these weather patterns could bring about varying conditions across different regions. Staying informed and following the recommended precautions will be essential to ensure the safety and well-being of individuals and communities.
Several people were injured and one person was pronounced dead following a collision of two buses in Kajugama last night. The tragedy took place as the private bus attempted to overtake another vehicle. Meanwhile, train services were disrupted today as a Colombo-bound train collided with a van in Vadua this morning. Thankfully, no casualties were reported. With that, here's a look at more news in brief.
A person was reportedly killed while 9 others were injured after 2 buses collided head-on in the Kajugam area on the Colombo-Kandy main road last night. Accordingly, a private bus collided with an SLTB bus travelling from Kathankudi to Colombo while trying to overtake another vehicle. The 44-year-old private bus driver died in the accident while several other victims travelling in the 2 buses sustained injuries. The driver of the SLTB is currently under arrest and the Nitambu police is conducting further investigations regarding the accident. Meanwhile, a Colombo-bound train collided with a van at a railway crossing in Thalpitiya in Badua this morning. One person travelling in the van was rescued from the vehicle, while the other was rescued an hour later, assisted by efforts from rescue teams and the police, together with local residents. Further, train services on the coastal line were disrupted as a result of the accident. Investigations are yet to be conducted by the Railway Security Division of the Vadua Police. The Sri Lankan Navy meanwhile apprehended a whole of 440 kilograms of smuggled kendu leaves and a dinghy during a special operation executed in Negombo yesterday. The search operation further led to the seizure of 440 kilograms and 900 grams of kendu leaves in 15 packages in a dinghy. The consigned packages and the dinghy is yet to be handed to the Customs Preventive Office in Katunayaka for further legal proceedings.
More news after this short break. Stay tuned.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. The final Randoli procession of the Kandy Asala Perahera commenced a short while ago, exploding in light and colour on the streets of Kandy. Massive crowds gathered to witness the annual cultural showpiece and have been flooding in since the early hours of this morning, despite some heavy rains in the area. You can watch the Perahera on TV Derana from 10:30 p.m. later tonight.
The 4th Randoli procession of the Kandy Asala Perahera festival commenced at 7:15 p.m. yesterday. Meanwhile, the final Randoli procession of the Kandy Asala Perahera commenced at the auspicious time of 7:03 p.m. today. Massive crowds have petered into Kandy to experience the cultural festival since the early hours of the morning. The Kandy Asala Perahera festival will be telecast via TV Derana from 10:30 p.m. onwards tonight.
Cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the Sri Lanka rupee may see a depreciation with the government's decision to relax import restrictions as the country is recovering from the economic crisis. However, Minister Gunawardena said that the central bank and financial experts believe that the rupee is at a more stable footing than it was during the crisis, and the impact on import restrictions will only be a short-term phenomenon.
The Sri Lankan rupee turned into Asia's worst performing currency from being the best in the first half of the year in July and was expected to extend losses amidst headwinds from interest rate cuts and loosening of import controls. The currency fell more than 6% in July, reversing its stellar performance in the first 6 months of this year, when the rupee was Asia's top performer with a 19% advance. According to Global Analytics, it was expected to weaken by 8% by end 2023. The rupee closed at 329 rupees and 54 cents against the US dollar yesterday. Meanwhile, commenting on the exchange rate, Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the impact of import control relaxations may be seen in the short term.
මේ අනුපාතයේ තීරණය වීම පිළිබඳ වෙළඳපොළ සඳහා ඍජුව මැදිහත් වීමේ ක්‍රමවේදයෙන් රජයේ ඉවත් වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල සමග ඇති කරගෙන තිබෙන කිවිසුම් සම්බන්ධතාවයේ අනුව. ඒ නිසා බොහෝ දුරට විනිමය අනුපාතයේ තීරණය වෙන්නේ වෙළඳපොළ ඉල්ලුම් සැපියුම් බලවේග අනුව. ඒ නිසා ඒ ස්වභාවික තත්වයක් වෙළඳපොළ තුල රට පිටට තිබෙන ඉල්ලුමට සාපේක්ෂව සැපියුම ඇති වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් විනිමය අනුපාතයේ ඉහළ යාමක් වැඩිපුර ගෙවීමක් කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා ආනයන සීමා ලිහිල් කරපු මුල් අවස්ථාවේ එවැනි තත්වයක් කෙටි කාලයේදී ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් මහා බැංකුව ඇතුළු මූල්‍ය විශේෂඥයන් විශ්වසනීය භාවය පළ කරනවා මේ පැවති තත්වය සමග සාපේක්ෂව සැසඳීමේදී ලංකා රුපියලේ අගය ස්ථාවර මට්ටමක බොහෝ දුරට පවතිනවා. ඒ නිසා කලින් දැවැන්තම ආර්ථික අර්බුදයේ තිබුණා. මීට වර්ෂයකට පෙර අපිට තෙල් නැවකට ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 3ක් හොයාගන්න බැරුව තෙල් නැව හැරවලා ගියා. අපිට ගෑස් නවකට 1 මිලියනයක් හොයාගන්න බැරි වෙලා තිබිලා හරවලා ගියා. අපිට උමාඔය ව්‍යාපෘතියේ 95ක් ඉවර කළා. ඉතිරි පහ ඉවර කරගන්න මිලියන 20ක් ගෙවන්න බැරුව උමාඔය ව්‍යාපෘතිය නතර වෙලා තිබුණා. ඒ වගේ දැවැන්ත මූල්‍ය සංචිත හිඳී යාමක් තිබුණ රටක්. ඒ නිසා මේ රට මෙතරම් කෙටි කාලයක් තුලදී අවුරුද්දක් වැනි කෙටි කාලයක් තුලදී මේ තත්වයට පත්වීම ගැන මූල්‍ය ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ ඉන්න විශේෂඥයන් රජයට ප්‍රසාදය පළ කරලා තිබෙනවා.
The Sri Lanka Export Development Board said earnings from merchandise exports increased by 2.18% in July of 2023 compared to June of 2023. Per provisional data released, merchandise exports earnings in July 2023 have surpassed the $1 billion mark, recording a total of $1,027.2 million. However, the Export Development Board said this is a decline of 11.79% from a year earlier.
According to Sri Lanka's Export Development Board, merchandise export earnings in July 2023 recorded a value of $1 billion, which is a 2.18% increase from the previous month. This number, however, is a decline of 11.79% from a year earlier. This decline in merchandise exports is due to the reduced demand shown in export products, especially in apparel and textiles, rubber and rubber-based products, and coconut-based products. For the period of January to July 2023, overall merchandise exports decreased by 10.26% to $6.8 billion compared to the corresponding period in 2022. Further, the EDB mentioned that out of top 10 export markets, only the United Arab Emirates has shown strong performance during the month of July 2023 and the period of January to July 2023 compared to the corresponding period in the previous year. In addition, India and France have shown strong performances in July this year compared to July last year. Exports to the United States, Sri Lanka's largest export destination, decreased 15.60% to $253.79 million in July from a year earlier and 18.5% to $1.6 billion in the period of January to July 2023 compared to the same period in 2022.
Moving on to our corporate affairs segment. Sri Lanka Access Engineering said that it will explore new investment opportunities through public-private partnerships and build-operate transfers going forward, as it expects a boost in cash inflows in the coming months. Meanwhile, the Hatton Tea Plantation said that the government should immediately take action to reduce the rising prices of the materials in the market that directly impacts the tea prices in the country. With that, let's take a look at the latest updates from the corporate world around the island.
Sri Lanka Access Engineering says that it has succeeded in recovering most of the government debt and is generating the required cash flow to support the firm's project pipeline. The firm says that it expects a boost in cash flows in the coming months with the scheduled conclusion and commencement of commercial operations of the Access Logistics Park Ekala and the completion of Marina Square Mixed Development in 2025. Chairman of Access Engineering Sumal Pereira said that the firm will explore new investment opportunities through public-private partnerships and build-operate transfers to further secure its liquidity position in the short to medium term. Sri Lanka tea producer Hatton Plantation says that government policymakers need to address rising input material prices in the market that can directly influence tea prices. Chairman of Hatton Plantations G.D. Seaton says that the firm is mindful of the ongoing macro volatilities and is optimistic that businesses and households will regain their growth momentum in 2023. He added that the availability of foreign exchange to import critically essential inputs will recover lagged effects and re-establish the tea production in the country. Meanwhile, Colombo City Holdings says that the firm is optimistic of the coming financial year due to the recent improvements in the macroeconomic direction and the changes that have arisen through the finalization of the extended funding facility. The firm said that despite improvements, the business environment in Sri Lanka is currently experiencing high levels of volatility, with the government trying to implement progressive strategies for economic sustainability. As a result, the firm will continue to monitor macroeconomic factors and take necessary decisions to increase its investment portfolio. The Lanka rating agency says that it confirms the ratings of Sanasa Life Insurance Corporation plc at BBB IFS. The rating is dependent upon sustained improvement in the business and the financial risk profile of the company. The Lanka rating agency says that the strong solvency profile of the company, indicated by its ample reserves, places comfort in the rating, and an improvement in investment performance and capital generation would be considered positive for the ratings and vice versa.
That wraps up all the news I have for you today. Join us again at the same time tomorrow for more up-to-date news on events happening locally and internationally. This is Jonathan Benedict wishing you a blessed Thursday ahead. Good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.